Greetings, and the awesome, warm, positive vibration. So today is off to an early start, although I'm coming on a little later. And as usual, I've been up really, really early in just a peaceful space, constantly beautifying my space and clearing the way in my space. I know for me that is very important to my mental, right? To me, maintaining a state of relax, having a space that is free of clutter, that smells nice, where I can hear nature that's very brightly lit. All of those things are very, I would say, critical to my my feeling really, really good and open and inspired to get into action around what I say is important and what I like to experience in my life. So you are welcome to let me know respectfully in the comments. Is there anything that you do, any kinds of movement, movement practices, and in particular, cleaning. Cleaning for me is extremely therapeutic. Sometimes when we're feeling very stuck, we may be lying stagnant in our energy. And stagnant, not just to say like superficially, but when I observe greetings, stagnant also in totally paralyzed by all of the thoughts that are going like an avalanche or like an extreme snowstorm that have taken over, and we're watching the screen. We're totally engaged and immersed in the screen of our thoughts, and it can render us paralyzed and demotivated. So we're going to take a little teeny weeny relaxation break, and I'm just sharing some of the work that we're doing in the Cocoon, as well as a focus on whole, fresh living, unprocessed foods, radical self-acceptance, accepting your body where it is, although you can play and groom as you like. I found it extremely therapeutic to be accepting of yourself. Like I had a little blemish over here, and letting it clear in faith. And, observing, not a blind faith, observing any kind of dialogue that comes up for you around shame or embarrassment of your stretch marks, of your adipose tissue, which is excess fatty tissue on the body, of your eyes, your skin, condition you may be going through, your breath. These are things, a dialogue that's going on all the time that really affects our esteem, and our subconscious drives our actions, whether you believe it or not, all day. So I make it a practice to lovingly and respectfully, more so than anything, because we throw the word around love very loosely, but a respect for myself, a respect for my body temple as it is right now, not where it was in 1992, not where it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where it is right now in its present state and condition, out of respect for the body temple, the vehicle that I have been gifted with, that I've popped out onto this plane of existence with, that is carrying me throughout life. The respect of it is really important. So to be very pointed and to be very intentional around the language that you're using with yourself can be very beneficial, because it's not, if you find something that's not fake and not authentic. So radical self-acceptance, though, that is a perspective, just, I just thought of, those are words that I can relate to that are honest, right? Whatever is going on, my eyebrows, I've made a choice to love and respect them. My fingernails, I work with food all the time in the garden. I've made a choice to respect them. Also to respect and honor myself through my maturing process, especially as someone that has been in a very vain industry of fitness, and our culture can be very vain. And I think there's something to be said for a healthy dose of vanity. Though sitting with yourself through all the phases of life, through in sickness and in health, with your own self, and giving yourself space and compassion and holding yourself. Right now, if you were being wheeled in on a gurney into an emergency room, you would want someone to really be there for you when you're the sickest, and when you might be smelly, and you might be sick at some point in your life where you might poo-poo and vomit on yourself. Shout out to all the moms that have given birth, So there, we're not really trying to save face when we are bringing forth life. When your mom was bringing you forth onto this planet, it was bloody, it was sloppy, It was, it was all kinds of chaos, so-called chaos, for you to come forth to have the opportunity to experience human life on this plane as we know it. So I encourage a respect for that process, a respect for process, and a respect for yourself. All of these things, being very intentional about how you are communicating and talking to yourself. So if you're being very intentional, then perhaps we have an opportunity to interrupt the automatic pilot of many things, maybe perhaps a good majority of things that we didn't actively choose to put in there. Now we're actively choosing to reprogram ourselves right now. But most of it in our early years, we did not choose to dump all that programming in. And the computer is responding to the programs, whether we like it or not, a majority of the day. So today, in this early day, before I go out into the garden and get some other things on, I hope you're riding here with me in this cocoon process, this organic cocoon process, that I have always found it necessary. There's a time to be out, and there's a time to go in, to be with yourself, and to literally give yourself what you have been, many of us, may not be you, have been begging and pleading mentally with your programs from other people for. You want that person to be there for you when you're sick. You want somebody to compliment you. You want somebody to encourage you to eat healthy. Why not be that for yourself first, out of respect for yourself? And when you're having challenges, be an encouragement for yourself. Why not? You're with you all the time. However, you may notice that there are different forms of communication. The more you get quiet, which is why I love relaxation in the early day, and the more you listen, you can start to distinguish between the different sets of communication and instruction and that we are being given. Quite often we're taking instruction from the part of us that just wants to feel good and to maybe perhaps take on vices or behaviors that long-term are not beneficial or that take us off of our goals. So all that to be said, we want to take some relaxation. And today I'm going to just mention the contemplation, right? Asking questions of our own divine, onboard, innate intelligence that is your birthright. You don't ask permission. You don't have to ask anybody for something that is already yours. Like, you don't have to ask to be spiritual, It's just being in tune, because we are all spirit. We all have an essence before we enter this body, and we lay this coat down, this outfit down, our essence will still exist. So that's who you are. We don't need to ask permission for that. So today's contemplation is worry, right? Which some might say it's a natural part of life. I would say I think it's more conditioned than anything else, like the amount of worry. So I invite you to consider and ask of your own onboard divine innate intelligence. And if this does not resonate, feel free to leave it right here. If weight loss, or I like to say more so weight release more so than weight loss. And weight is not limited to just adipose tissue and fatty tissue that is a manifestation of mindless consumption and waste on the body. I invite you to consider mental weight and emotional weight. And just if you observe your own looped patterns of thoughts that just continue on, maybe for days, weeks, and months, things that maybe perhaps due to righteous rage you're unwilling to let go of, or that are unresolved, things that are unresolved in your mind that you're just not willing to let go, or even in your efforts to let them go, it's still riding your mind. Your mental activity is still riding your spirit, which is taking up a lot of energy and focus. It's siphoning off a huge amount of your energy and your focus. And we have your energy and your focus is a really, really precious, expensive currency. And we can't do and occupy our conscious thoughts, all of these different things at one time. So when you're trying to focus on releasing things or getting things done, or when yet another day goes by that you have been unable to maintain your focus enough to get into action around what you say is important to you, we may want to consider how expensive it is to allow our focus to go somewhere else, even when it seems something righteous. If it is taking up too much of the pie, if it is taking up too much of the currency, then perhaps you want to consider, well, and ask your own onboard divine innate intelligence, is there anything that I can do to shift my energy and my focus in a way that is real for me? I invite you to consider if constant worry, if it is affecting your ability to release weight, emotional, physical, mental, spiritual. Is worrying, is worrying, is worry. Is it hindering me? Is it holding me back from releasing weight? Is it holding me back worry that I might not have enough? Is it hindering me from letting go of clutter? Is worry, is it hindering me from even getting to the glass of water that I need to drink because the water's over there, but I'm just on automatic pilot because I'm on following the screen of thoughts in my mind? That's part one of today's contemplation. Part two, I invite you to check in, tune in to the guidance system of your own divine, onboard, innate intelligence. Needs no name, no middleman, no middlewoman. And I invite you to just check in and ask of your own guidance system the quality of my sleep. What's the quality of my sleep? And is the quality of my sleep being affected by worry? And quality, there's so many different studies on how much sleep we need at what age. And, with all of these professionals, these thousands of professionals, then there's you and your guidance system and what is being communicated to you. If you put your hand on your stomach and feel around, if your stomach feels calm, and if you have excess tissue, fatty tissue or adipose tissue deposited there, which is demonstrating to you or giving you a communication about maybe perhaps either systems of cleansing, building and cleansing are not functioning optimally, or where there's mindless consumption going on. So I invite you to go to the foundation, right? Because we're in the cocoon. We're going to make good use of our time of going in. Is worry where your mental activity is focused at? Is that affecting your quality of sleep? So I know in the recent 2 years, I have never been in front of the computer so much as when I moved to a different space and I didn't have access to some of the physical places that I would work with my clients. So, and some of the things that I noticed, right, that I would hear clients speak about, which I never could relate to before, to weight shifting. Fortunately, I have good, healthy habits, but even I noticed a difference from being in front of the computer so much. I noticed a difference when I didn't sit on my ball as much, right? And I was on my feet. Well, I still am on my feet, but just my life pattern shifted. And so I know definitely being exposed in particular, I was never on this computer as much. And so I noticed immediately a feeling of anxiety from seeing all of this stuff, the news. Even when I don't have a news station, I don't even have a news channel here. For years, I was very intentional about not having TV around me because I'm affected. I don't care for scary movies, scare myself half to death. I'm not going to get on a roller coaster to pay somebody to scare myself, almost give myself a heart attack. I'm extremely sensitive to images of violence. So I had never experienced so much. I could notice just mental anxiety to the point I was like, turn it off, where, I got to figure out a way to put other kind of screensavers on my computer because I could recognize, and I already knew that the brain, quite often the reactions of the eyes and the brain cannot distinguish in our mental processing between the images that are coming through and whether or not that is actually physically happening to us. So I know that I need to be very mindful of what I'm watching. However, a lot of my work now in recent years has been online. I've shifted a lot of my work to working on these computers through FaceTime and Skype. And so commercials come on and headlines come on. I've taken all the apps off of my phone before and really tried to orchestrate and be mindful. But I notice as I lay down to go to sleep that it takes me much longer to go to sleep, just like it takes me much longer now to warm up before I get into my movement practice, into my exercise. If I don't take longer, and that was a shift, one time I could just jump into certain things. Now I notice I need a much longer warm up. That's respectful of my body. If I don't respect it, I will get an injury. Right? The ego will take out the host. So I'm noticing in the quiet, especially in the wee hours before you go to rest or in the wee hours when you get up, I notice if I'm quiet and inquisitive, wow, I can really start to distinguish more and more the screen of thoughts in the mind. It's going like I'm at a movie theater. And I'm realizing, like, I've done breath work and done deep breathing, but I realized that the amount of screen time, right? Because you can put apps on your phone and your different devices to measure how much time you're on there. Because many people say that we eat healthy and we'll say we have all these great habits, but there's nothing like accountability. And I encourage everyone to get an accountability partner that is going to be objective. Our ego is not, it's not objective, it's not. And quite often, many of us don't reach certain levels of literal health and wellness because we don't have any kind of personal integrity. Doesn't make us bad people, but the ego is running the show quite often, driving our behaviors, and it's primal, it's not logical, and that's another story. However, I'm noticing it takes me much longer to relax so that I switch from the screen of all the thoughts in my mind going like a movie, like a Dolby surround sound theater, to my breath. So last night I was experimenting and going to deep breathing as I lay there. And I'm big on finding the ideal position for me to rest in. So my lower back is supported, my neck is supported. I'm in a rest pose. And like the more I relaxed my body, the more I could notice, distinguish, like literally like I had a screen on. And I was like, wow. And so I was very intentionally breathing. And before I knew it, I drifted to sleep. So the distinction is I can notice it takes me much longer. And I have to admit, with all my positive work, that it's a result of the screen time. So even I, as someone that works in, the health and nutrition field, I have to be more strategic. Strategic rather than forcing, more strategic about managing my time in front of the screen, because I notice the result of a siphoning off of energy. It's affecting my focus and my production. Again, I get a good amount done, but I realize my sleep isn't as restful. I can see it in my eyes. I can see it in my skin. I eat extremely healthy, so I know when my sleep isn't quality, even if it's less, I can have less sleep depending on my timing I go to sleep, but I can notice that I'm not getting the quality of sleep. And so I know for a fact this affects our life cycle, definitely my vitality, because when I'm well rested, I'm ready to jump out of bed and I want to play. I want to get nice and sweaty. So I can notice that vibrancy and that vitality. See how this is different from just I'm vegan, I'm vegetarian. I invite you to consider a lot of times those are distinctions, but the ego loves a label and loves to box and categorize ourselves and everyone else, and it loves a label. A label doesn't necessarily mean results, right? So I'm looking for vitality and energy, so I can notice if I'm not feeling as vital or as energized. And I know a big siphoning off, because I'm always looking for the leakages, right? I want to remain open and perceptive to the leakages of energy. And I pay attention to when I feel energized and motivated. So I want to catch those moments and be very aware of those moments so I can replicate them and be strategic about managing my energy flow. So I notice that screen takes longer to shut off, and definitely deep breathing is an access point for me to notice these subtleties. A lot of these subtleties, this type of work is not done because people just want to jump right into a recipe and they have their place and right into just give me the exercise program. But what's foundational, the whys, and even if you have a whole prescription in the whys and you read all of these great books, they're not a bypass for the process. There's no bypass for going through the process. And it's just like when I share a lot about the preparing of my own food gives me all kinds of information that I would not have from reading it on a label in terms of how the food behaves and then, how it spoils, or, I can have clues as to what that food is going to do in my body. So I'm going to leave that right there. The contemplation. Is worry affecting the quality of your sleep? Is worry, is it affecting my ability to release weight, to release clutter, to release what is not serving me, to release what I no longer need? That's the contemplation for today. So you're welcome to take a comfortable position. If you need to sit in a chair, if you have issues with your knee and back, so your body is upright, and you take the bowl of your pelvis and tilt it up. And then pull your belly button, pull it slightly in towards your spine. Make sure you have lots of room between your shoulders and your ears. And we're going to inhale and exhale through the mouth, listening to see if we can synchronize and lengthen a nice long inhale and exhale, all for the purpose of relaxation. So you're invited, if you like, to write a couple of words that may come up for you in your journal, or a couple of sentences that come up for you in your journal. I invite you to seek the support, right? The support is one thing too, and I think it's definitely important to create a circle of influence around yourself with the sounds you're listening to, whatever voices or communications that are going to give a dumping, which are going to drop deposits down into your subconscious, right? To just be mindful of them, to create support for yourself. So you have support in your endeavors. And the one thing that is with you, the one person that's with you, the one connection to the essence that's with you always is you. So in order to gain access to that part of our communication that's not always on defense, and the ego has a purpose, we can demonize it, but it can take out the host because it's illogical in its overprotection of us. And I'm glad that we have access. I'm grateful for the ego. I know that it has a purpose. But I invite you to ask of your own divine innate intelligence, is there anything that I can do to soothe myself of the worry in a way that is very real for me, that it's not something I'm faking, or I'm just saying some affirmations that I really don't believe? Is there anything that I can do to soothe myself and calm myself? It might be like drinking a big old glass of hot water with some lemon or some lime, or cutting up some ginger, or to boil some cinnamon. When I came up, I remember my mom boiling cinnamon to have a sweet smell in the house. Any little action that you can do, the very action of you taking an action intentionally is putting a deposit in your subconscious, so you can start to cultivate and nurture, right? We talk about nurturing a relationship with God, and with my spouse, and with my child. Nurturing a relationship of trust with yourself, male or female, whatever package you have, because your essence doesn't have labels. It's beyond labels. So if you can cultivate, give yourself some space and pause on bashing or beating up on yourself. And at the same time, we can still balance and level that out with a courageous accountability and accepting 110% responsibility for our life. Right now, this body temple that we have that gets scars from the garden and from knives, and we've taken all kinds of getting so-called beat up on from other people, but also from ourselves. Right? So give ourselves a break. Is there anything that I can do differently to soothe myself and to give myself access to relaxation? So you're welcome to replay this perhaps in the afternoon if you want some pleasant company as you declutter. It's a constant decluttering. And as you're releasing some things that don't serve you or you don't need, or taking up extra space, or doing a load of laundry, and, scrubbing some little corners and stuff, and see what that does for your psyche, if it makes you feel better. If you have some non-toxic incense, or you may want to put some peppermint and eucalyptus. I know my men folks, they don't collect all of these burners and stuff like that. So you may want to just drop some peppermint and eucalyptus oil inside of a pot and turn it on a low simmer. Either that, or some vanilla and cinnamon that you have inside of your food prep in your kitchen area, in your kitchen healing laboratory, and to drop it inside of a pot so that you can have those smells inside the house to create a sensory experience for yourself. You may want to shift your screensaver into a picture of you laughing, like busting a gut laughing, right? So you can create some kind of support for yourself. So with that, feel free to lay on the floor once, twice, 3, 4 times a day and do nothing, even a few minutes, just to surrender. It's not a big production, but internally it can help you loosen some of, we talk about impacted colon, but subconscious is impacting with so many deposits still for years and years and years, so we can give ourselves some kind of space. You may want to lay on the floor and do nothing. So you're welcome to replay this in order to relax in the afternoon, or maybe perhaps in the evening when you press pause on your work, so we're not overworking ourselves, and we're managing our energy. So I'm inviting you all to create a great day on purpose. Feel free to share this with someone who can maybe benefit and maybe in their quiet space on their own could use some kind of a positive support that's not coming from any kind of religious paradigm. I'm not really attached to the package you come in. I'm more interested in behavior and behavior and yeah, behavior and intention. So y'all create a great day on purpose, and I will see you soon.